Hey folks, this is Kalani. We have some huge class buffs and nerfs coming with the next weekly reset. We may see a Q-type option pop up for Mythic Plus dungeons, the disc belt is finally getting some nerfs to rein in its power level, the Manaforge Omega raid has a handful of nerfs to look over, and the Legion Remix event will be far more rewarding than the initial PTR testing experience. There's a lot to talk about, so let's break it all down in this week's WoW News video. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. First up this week we have some huge class changes, buffs and nerfs to go over. Death Knights are starting out strong with some buffs for blood. They're going to see a 6% damage increase across the board, which definitely isn't too shabby. Bone Shield armor is also been increased by 10%, so you'll dish out some more damage and be a bit tankier when these buffs come through. Druids are up next, and it looks like their prayers have been answered, all without closing down their class Discord channels. Balance will see a 5% damage boost for all of their abilities, but it does seem to come at a cost. One of their 2 set bonuses is being nerfed to a 15% damage boost for Starfire, down from 20%. Boundless Moonlight's Fury Valoon flash damage has been reduced by 10%, and then Elune's Chosen minor moon damage has been reduced by 10% as well. But that 5% across the board should make up for those minor nerfs. Evokers have quite a few changes to look forward to as well. For Augmentation, Scale Commander's bombardment damage has been increased by 25%, Devastation's Deep Breath damage is getting a 20% buff, and their Command Squadron Disintegrates damage will see a 10% buff as well. Preservation hasn't been left out, they will also get that 20% damage buff for Deep Breath. It's not quite as useful on Preservation, but it is always fun to get in some extra damage with a Deep Breath. Moving on to the Hunters, Beast Mastery is seeing some love this week. They'll get a 4% damage boost for all abilities, Deathblow's chance to proc was doubled up to 20%, the Bell Toll's damage bonus was increased to 10% from 6%, Phantom Pain damage share was increased to 45% from 30%, and then Bleak Powder damage was increased by 25% as well. So quite a few buffs to look forward to for Beast Mastery and Dark Ranger specifically. The Priests are up next, and both healing specs will see a handful of changes. For Holy, heal is getting a 12% buff, so that's always nice to see. Halo healing has been increased by 40%, which is kinda huge, and then Empowered Surge's bonus was buffed up to 45% from 30%. For Discipline, Atonement will now heal for 33% of damage done, up from 28%, so that yo-yo is still going back and forth. We're back to 33% of damage done for now, but Atonement healing outside of raids will see a bit of a nerf. That will now be increased by 100% down from 125%, so this will end up being more of a buff for raid healing rather than for dungeon healing. That's all for the class buffs and nerfs this week, but with another patch right around the corner, I would expect to see some more changes over the next few weeks. All of these class changes will go live with the next weekly reset, which will be Tuesday the 9th for NA realms and Wednesday the 10th for EU realms, so we don't have too much longer to wait for these buffs and nerfs to come into play. In other news, a curious survey popped up across the internet where the dev team are asking questions about the looking for group feature and how players feel about different ways to improve that experience. The 6 questions include the option for the group finder to automatically form a group for you based on criteria you set, always giving the group leader a resilient key so it won't deplete for the first group that they set up each week, or giving group leaders extra crests or valor stones, and recommending players for your group based on skill levels or playstyles and goals. So the general theme here seems to be giving incentives for players to form their own groups and be the group leader, whether that's some extra currencies or preventing your key from depleting, or just flat out creating a queue style system so the group finder does all of the legwork for you. Now the potential of a queuable Mythic Plus being introduced has sparked a lot of discussion, and I've seen a lot of players suggest that it would actually be good for the game and let more players jump into Mythic Plus without having to worry about metas or being rejected over and over, and if you can set parameters for what kind of group you want to play with and have Mythic Plus score or item level requirements, it should do a pretty decent job of putting a group together for you. But I don't actually think a queue would work for Mythic Plus almost at all, even if it's just putting a group together for you. The main reason is that tanks and healers don't really have any incentive to use any kind of automated grouping feature for Mythic Plus, so it would probably just end up being DPS sitting in the queue all day waiting for a group to get slotted into. The reason why it can take forever to get a group going for Mythic Plus is because there's just not enough tanks and healers to group up with all of the DPS wanting to run keys. If you ever roll a tank or healer and start setting up your own groups, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The sheer volume of applicants you get if you have a tank or healer in the group is kinda shocking, and if you ever have a tank and a healer, you can guarantee your group will be made in under a minute, even if you're being super picky with what DPS you want to invite. This scarcity also gives tanks and healers basically all of the power when it comes to putting a group together and choosing their teammates. They can be really picky and still make groups instantly, so why would they ever give up that power to roll the dice with a queue or automated group filling option? I don't think they really ever would. The same kind of goes for group leader bonuses. That all sounds fine and dandy, but the vast majority of those bonuses will probably end up in the pockets of tanks and healers who don't really need another incentive to make their own groups. When you require all 3 roles to complete a dungeon, the number of groups will always be limited by the least popular role, so adding in incentives and bonuses to the group finder tool is nice, and letting it auto-create groups for you based on parameters could aid in some cases. The real answer is increasing the number of tanks and healers that are running content like Mythic plus keys. Both roles have increased responsibilities when compared to DPS, and healing specifically is usually a thankless role. I'm not too sure what the answer is here, but the dev team really need to get more players onto tanks and healers if they want to make it easier or faster to find a group to run content with. That's just my thoughts on the matter though. What do you think of these potential group finder changes? Could a queue or automated group filler tool be useful for you? And would these group leader incentives change how you approach the Mythic Plus system? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Moving on, we have quite a few hotfixes to go over, which should make your raid experience much better, especially if you've been struggling to take down Dimensius on LFR difficulty. Whenever any player engages Dimensius on LFR mode, all other players in the immediate area are now also transported to his location, so the ninja pulling shouldn't be as much of an issue moving forward. But you will all get dragged into combat as soon as someone decides to engage the boss, so I guess you'll need to make sure you're all ready to go as quickly as you can. There are also several changes for Nexus King and Dimensius that should make the encounters easier to deal with for smaller group sizes, and the story mode for Dimensius was made a little bit easier as well. Now we also have some pretty large nerfs coming through for various disc power belts, which will make that belt much easier to replace for almost every class. Charged bolts, critical chain, spark burst, static charge, electric current and charged crystal will all have their damage or stat effects reduced by 20%. That's a pretty decent nerf, and I guess it shows that the dev team want this belt to be a bit easier to replace than it currently is. As it stands, the belt is still the best in slot option for several classes and specs, and for most players you don't actually replace it until you can get your hands on a high hero track item or even a myth track item, which doesn't feel all too great when you consider that this belt is technically old season gear. Now it's important to note that these changes only go live with patch 11.2.5, which we're thinking will release around about October 7th, so we do have a little bit longer to wait before the nerfs actually come through for the belt specifically. Patch 11.2.5 also brings back the Turbo Boost event that we saw in Season 2, which offers you a bunch of different ways to gear up, but most notably it also gives you a few more upgrades for both hero and myth track gear, so even if the belt remains a decent item for you, chances are you will replace it with a fully upgraded myth track belt in 11.2.5 almost no matter what. And then the last updates we have to talk about this week are some significant changes to the Legion Remix event coming in patch 11.2.5. We'll pick up more account-wide experience bonuses while leveling, and experience rates are massively increased after you hit level 70, and if you decide to play on Heroic World tier, you'll get a lot more experience for that as well. We'll also get more rewards from pretty much all sources, which include bronze rewards, experience rewards, gear rewards, and collectibles like mounts or pets. We'll get additional rewards every 10 levels, which will make gearing up while leveling much easier as well. Monsters in dungeons and raids also had their health cut down by at least 40%, and damage done was slashed by at least 50%, so working through all instanced content should be much faster and easier as well. Then there are a few changes to the Heroic World tier to make it a bit more challenging, challenging, time-warped obelisks were buffed up by quite a lot, and there are a lot of bug fixes thrown in for good measure. So all in all, the earlier phases of Legion Remix should be easier and faster to progress through. The entire event should be more rewarding to let you pick up all of the goodies that you want much faster, and it should be a good deal more fun when compared to the initial version we saw on the 11.2.5 PTR. I'm glad these changes made it in before the event actually started up, but I'm sure we'll see many more updates as the floodgates open on patch day. When Mr. Pandaria Remix went live, there were a lot of rough edges that were ironed out quite quickly, so I kind of expect the same to happen for the Legion Remix event as well. But that's all the updates we have for this week, so that's it for this week's WoW News video. What do you think of the proposed group finder changes in those surveys? How do you feel about the disc belt seeing some nerfs? And are you more excited for the Turbo Boost event or the Legion Remix event, which are both coming in patch 11.2.5? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see the names floating by on screen. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can find links in the description or click the join button just below the video. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful in any way, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you're always kept up to date. Thanks for watching, folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I'll see you next time.